Grayson's world shattered the instant the HR director pressed play on the security footage, revealing him locked in a passionate kiss with his male colleague Joseph in the empty break room after hours. He never imagined that one private moment would ignite a company-wide scandal, forcing him to face the truths he had buried for so long. Gasps rippled through the packed conference room on the 15th floor of Apex Innovations in downtown Chicago. Phones were already out, fingers tapping furiously as whispers turned into a storm of disbelief. Grayson? With Joseph? Someone muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. His carefully built image as the straight, ambitious marketing specialist crumbled in seconds. The director paused the video, her face tight with professional detachment. "Mr. Miller, this has been reported. We need to discuss company policy and next steps immediately." Grayson's throat closed. He glanced at Joseph across the table, whose dark eyes met his with a mixture of fear and quiet resolve. 2 years of stolen moments, whispered promises, and careful lies had just been ripped into the open. How had it come to this? It had all started so innocently 2 years earlier on a rainy Tuesday in March. Joseph Ramirez had joined the marketing team as a junior analyst fresh out of grad school at Northwestern. At 28, he was 3 years younger than Grayson, with an easy smile, sharp intellect, and a quiet confidence that immediately set him apart. Grayson, 31 and already on track for promotion to senior director, had been assigned to mentor him on the big campaign for a national client. Late nights in the office became routine. They bonded over shared deadlines, bad coffee from the break room, and dry humor about corporate life. One evening, after wrapping a presentation that had gone better than expected, Joseph suggested grabbing a beer at a quiet bar a few blocks away. "Just to celebrate, no shop talk," he said with that disarming grin. Grayson hesitated only a second. Something about Joseph felt safe in a way no one else ever had. They talked for hours, not just about work but about life, dreams, and the pressure of expectations. Joseph shared stories of growing up in a big Latino family in California where being gay was accepted but still complicated. Grayson listened, nodding, but kept his own truth locked tight. His parents back in rural Illinois still asked every Sunday call if he was seeing any nice girls. He had learned early to smile and deflect. That first night ended with a handshake outside the bar, but the spark was undeniable. Weeks turned into months of careful lunches, shared projects, and late-night texts that danced around the edges of something more. Then came the company retreat in Wisconsin. After a long day of team-building exercises, they found themselves alone on the dock by the lake as the sun set. Joseph turned to him, voice soft. "Grayson, I think there's something here. Am I wrong?" The words hung in the cool air. Grayson's heart raced. For the first time in his adult life, he didn't run. "You're not wrong," he whispered. Their first kiss was tentative, almost afraid, but it unlocked a door Grayson had kept bolted for years. They agreed that night to keep it secret. Apex had no official ban on relationships, but the culture was old school. Grayson was up for promotion. Coming out felt like career suicide, and the thought of his father's disappointed silence made his stomach twist. So they built their world in shadows. Weekends at Joseph's small apartment in Logan Square, quick coffees in different neighborhoods, coded messages in work chats. Grayson learned to school his expression every time Joseph walked into a meeting. He told himself it was temporary, that once he made director he could breathe. But 2 years later, standing in the conference room with every eye on him, he realized how fragile that lie had always been. The director cleared her throat. "We'll need statements from both of you. This footage came from an anonymous tip. Until we investigate, I suggest you both take the rest of the day." Grayson nodded numbly. As people filed out, a few colleagues offered tight smiles of support, but most avoided his gaze. Sarah from accounting, who had always flirted with Joseph, shot him a look of pure betrayal. Joseph waited until the room emptied before stepping closer. "We'll figure this out," he said quietly, voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. Grayson wanted to believe him, but as he walked to the elevator, the weight of what was coming pressed down like Chicago winter. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. "Call me when you can, honey." Dad saw something online about your company. The scandal had already leaked beyond the office walls. Grayson stepped into the elevator alone, the doors closing on the life he had so carefully constructed. Outside, the city hummed on, indifferent to the earthquake starting inside him. He had spent years convincing himself that hiding kept him safe. Now he wondered if it had only kept him small. The walk to the parking garage felt endless. Every stranger on the street seemed to stare. By the time he reached his car, his hands were shaking too hard to grip the wheel. He sat there for 10 minutes, replaying the kiss on the screen, the way Joseph's hand had cupped his face with such tenderness. That moment had been real. Everything else suddenly felt like performance. His phone rang. Joseph. Grayson answered on the second ring. "Hey," Joseph said softly. "I'm outside. "Want to go somewhere and talk?" Grayson closed his eyes. "Yeah. Meet me at the park by the lake. The one where we had our first real date." He started the engine, the city blurring past as he drove north. 2 years of secrets were over. What came next terrified him more than anything. Yet somewhere beneath the fear, a tiny spark of relief flickered. Maybe the exposure wasn't just an ending. Maybe it was the beginning of finally living. He parked and spotted Joseph already waiting on a bench, coat collar turned up against the wind. Their eyes met across the grass, and for the first time in public they didn't look away. Grayson walked toward him, heart pounding with a new kind of courage he hadn't known he possessed. The conversation that followed stretched long into the afternoon. Joseph listened without judgment as Grayson poured out every fear about his family, the promotion, the whispers that would follow him forever. "I don't want to lose you," Grayson admitted, voice cracking. "But I don't know how to do this without losing everything else." Joseph reached across the bench and squeezed his hand, the touch bold and open in the daylight. "Then we lose some things together, and we build better ones." The words settled over Grayson like a promise. By the time the sun dipped lower, they had mapped out a plan for the coming days. Statements to HR, a joint email to the team if needed, and a call to Grayson's parents that he dreaded but knew he could no longer avoid. As they walked back to the cars, shoulders brushing, Grayson felt the first real shift inside. The scandal had shattered his walls. Now he had to decide what kind of man would walk through the rubble. The next morning arrived with a barrage of notifications. Grayson's phone wouldn't stop vibrating as he sat at his kitchen table, nursing black coffee. News of the Apex Kiss scandal had hit local tech blogs overnight. No names yet, but the speculation was vicious. Colleagues he considered friends sent cautious texts. "You okay?" Others stayed silent. He stared at the screen until Joseph's name appeared with a simple message. "HR meeting at 9. I'll be there." They met in the lobby, both dressed in their sharpest suits as if armor could protect them. The elevator ride up felt like a funeral procession. Inside the HR conference room, the director was joined by the company's legal counsel and, surprisingly, the CEO himself, a silver-haired man named Richard Harlan who rarely attended these matters. "Gentlemen," Harlan began, voice neutral, "Apex has no policy against consensual relationships between employees. However, the manner of discovery and the public nature of the footage have created a situation. We need to understand if this affects your ability to perform." Grayson swallowed hard. "It won't. We've kept it professional at work for 2 years. Joseph nodded beside him. "We're committed to the team." The questioning stretched for an hour. They recounted how the relationship began, confirmed it never interfered with projects, and assured no favoritism. The lawyer took notes while the director's expression softened slightly. "We'll conduct a full review. In the meantime, you're both on paid administrative leave starting today. Use the time wisely." As they left the building together for the first time in daylight, Grayson felt exposed in a new way. Passers-by on Michigan Avenue didn't know who they were, yet every glance felt loaded. They grabbed lunch at a small cafe where no one from the office ever went. Over sandwiches, Joseph opened up about his own fears. "My family's known since college. They worry about me in this industry, but they support us. Yours, that's different." Grayson stared at his plate. His father, a retired factory worker, had once made a casual remark about those people during a Thanksgiving dinner 2 years ago. The memory still stung. I have to tell them before they hear it from someone else. Joseph reached across the table and covered Grayson's hand with his own, right there in the cafe. The simple gesture sent warmth through Grayson's chest. They spent the afternoon walking along the lakefront, talking about the future they had only whispered about before. Joseph dreamed of starting his own consultancy one day. Grayson admitted he had been chasing the director title mostly to prove something to himself. Maybe this is the push we needed, Joseph said quietly, to stop hiding and start building something real. That evening, alone in his apartment, Grayson dialed his parents. His mother answered first, voice bright until he said the words, "Mom, Dad, there's something I need to tell you. I'm gay, and I'm in love with Joseph, the guy from work you've heard me mention." Silence stretched across the line. His father's voice finally came through, gruff and unsteady. "Son, we raised you right. This isn't what we expected." His mother cried softly in the background. Grayson held the phone tight, tears burning his own eyes. "I'm still me. I'm still your son." The call ended with promises to talk more, but the hurt lingered long after he hung up. He texted Joseph. "They know. It went about as well as expected." Joseph replied instantly, "I'm coming over." They spent the night on the couch, Joseph's arm around him, talking through the pain. For the first time, Grayson let himself cry openly. The next 3 days blurred into strategy sessions and quiet moments of connection. They drafted a short statement for the team, emphasizing professionalism and requesting respect for privacy. Sarah from accounting called Grayson unexpectedly. "I was hurt at first," she admitted, "but I see how happy you two look in the photos people are sharing. You deserve that." The kindness surprised him. Not everyone was cruel. By the end of the week, HR cleared them to return, citing no policy violation. The office buzzed when they walked in together on Monday. Some colleagues offered nods of support. Others kept distance. The CEO pulled Grayson aside later. "Talent like yours doesn't come along every day. We'll weather this storm." The words should have been reassuring, but Grayson felt the underlying message. Keep it quiet moving forward. That night, over dinner at Joseph's place, they argued for the first time since the exposure. "I don't want to hide anymore," Joseph said, voice firm. "We almost lost everything because we did." Grayson ran a hand through his hair. "The promotion is next month. One more push." Joseph's eyes softened with sadness. "Is the title worth more than being free?" The question hung between them. Grayson had no answer yet. As they fell asleep tangled together, he realized the scandal had done more than expose them. It had forced every buried fear into the light. He was changing slowly, painfully, but undeniably. The man who woke up the next morning felt both terrified and strangely alive. The journey ahead would test them both, but for the first time Grayson understood that love this real demanded honesty, not just in private but in every part of life. Weeks passed in a tense new normal. Grayson threw himself into projects with renewed focus, determined to prove the scandal hadn't derailed his career. Joseph worked quietly beside him, their interactions professional yet laced with new awareness from the team. Late evenings still belonged to them, but now they risked small touches in the elevator when no one was looking. The promotion review loomed like a deadline. Grayson's boss hinted that the board was watching closely. "Optics matter," he said one afternoon. The words stung. At home, calls with his parents grew more frequent but no easier. His mother sent articles about lifestyle choices, while his father avoided the topic entirely. Grayson's frustration built until one Sunday he snapped during their weekly video call. "This isn't a choice, Dad. This is who I am." The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. Joseph listened patiently afterward, offering quiet strength. "You're doing the work they need to do too." Their relationship deepened in unexpected ways. They attended a small pride event on the lakefront one weekend, holding hands openly for the first time in public. Grayson's heart raced the entire time, but the joy on Joseph's face made it worth every anxious second. Back at the office, however, cracks appeared. A junior colleague named Marcus, who had once competed with Grayson for projects, began spreading subtle rumors in meetings. Some people get special treatment, he muttered loud enough for others to hear. Grayson confronted him privately. Whatever issue you have, keep it professional. Marcus smirked. Just saying what everyone's thinking. The encounter left Grayson rattled. He confided in Joseph that night. I thought the worst was over. Joseph pulled him close. We face it together. The following Monday brought an unexpected ally. The company's diversity coordinator, Elena, requested a meeting with both of them. What happened opened eyes, she said. We're proposing sensitivity training. Your story could help others. Grayson hesitated, but Joseph's encouraging nod convinced him. They agreed to share their experience anonymously in the first session. Preparing the talk forced Grayson to examine his own journey. He wrote pages about the fear that had kept him hidden, the relief of being seen, and the ongoing struggle with family acceptance. Reading it aloud to Joseph brought tears to both their eyes. The training session was scheduled for the next week. In the days leading up, Grayson's anxiety peaked. He barely slept, replaying worst-case scenarios. Joseph stayed by his side, reminding him of their strength. You've already survived the hardest part, he whispered one night. On the morning of the session, Grayson stood in front of 30 colleagues, voice steadier than he expected. He spoke about the courage it took to live authentically and the cost of silence. Joseph stood beside him, adding his perspective with quiet grace. When they finished, the room was silent for a long moment before applause broke out. Several people approached afterward with stories of their own. The support felt overwhelming and healing. That evening they celebrated quietly at home with takeout and a movie. For the first time since the exposure, Grayson allowed himself to feel hopeful. The promotion decision came 2 days later. He was called into the CEO's office. You've shown real leadership through adversity, Harlan said. The board approved your promotion. Grayson left the meeting stunned. He found Joseph waiting in the hallway. I got it, he said, voice cracking with emotion. They hugged briefly, mindful of the office, but the joy was undeniable. Later that night, as they cooked dinner together, Grayson turned to Joseph. I couldn't have done any of this without you. Joseph smiled. We did it together. Yet even in victory, Grayson felt the pull of unfinished business. His parents had requested a visit the following weekend. The thought filled him with dread and determination. He wanted them to meet Joseph, to see the love that had carried him through the storm. Joseph agreed without hesitation. As they prepared for the trip to Illinois, Grayson practiced conversations in his head. The drive downstate felt both endless and too short. When they pulled into the familiar driveway, his mother's hug was warm but cautious. His father shook Joseph's hand with a firm grip, eyes guarded. Dinner was polite but tense. Later, on the porch, Grayson's father finally spoke. I don't understand it all, son, but I see how he looks at you, and how you look at him. That's real. The simple acknowledgement cracked something open inside Grayson. Tears fell freely as he hugged his father for the first time in years without reservation. The weekend passed in small steps forward. His mother asked Joseph questions about his family. By Sunday, the air felt lighter. Driving back to Chicago, Grayson reached for Joseph's hand across the console. Thank you for being patient with me. Joseph squeezed back. We're building something lasting. Back at work, the new title brought new responsibilities and a surprising level of respect. Colleagues who had once whispered now sought his input openly. The scandal had transformed into a story of resilience. Yet Grayson knew the journey wasn't complete. Internal doubts still surfaced on tough days. Joseph remained his anchor, gently encouraging therapy and open conversations. One evening, after a long week, they sat on the balcony watching the city lights. I used to think hiding kept me safe, Grayson admitted. Now I know living openly made me stronger. Joseph leaned against him. And we're just getting started. The words carried the weight of truth. The months ahead would bring new challenges, but together they faced them with honesty and love. The man Grayson had become was someone he finally recognized in the mirror, scars and all. The promotion celebration at the office felt surreal. Colleagues raised glasses in the conference room, toasts mixing genuine warmth with lingering curiosity. Grayson stood beside Joseph, no longer hiding the soft smile they shared. Elena from Diversity Initiatives pulled him aside later. "Your story changed the culture here," she said. "More people are speaking up." The validation warmed him, but Grayson knew real change took time. Marcus, the former rival, kept his distance, but his silence spoke volumes. Outside work, life settled into a new rhythm. Weekends now included double dates with Joseph's friends, laughter-filling spaces that once held secrets. Grayson's parents called more often, asking about Joseph with genuine interest. The shift felt fragile but real, yet tension simmered beneath the surface. A major client project demanded late nights again, testing their boundaries. One evening, exhausted after a 12-hour day, Grayson snapped at Joseph over a minor scheduling conflict. "I can't do everything perfectly," he said, frustration spilling out. Joseph's calm response cut deeper than anger. "I'm not asking for perfect. I'm asking for us to be partners, not just co-workers who happen to be in love." The argument ended in apologies and a long hug, but it highlighted the strain of balancing public success with private vulnerability. The following week brought an unexpected curveball. An anonymous blog post resurfaced old footage from the scandal, this time naming them and speculating about favoritism in the promotion. Comments flooded in, some supportive, others cruel. Grayson's inbox filled with concerned messages from the team. He met with HR again, this time with legal support. "We're handling it," the director assured him. "But you may want to issue a statement." Joseph suggested they write it together. Sitting at the kitchen table late into the night, they crafted words that reclaimed their narrative. "Our relationship is built on respect and professionalism," it read. "We ask for the same courtesy we extend to everyone." Posting it publicly felt exposing yet empowering. Responses poured in from across the industry. Fellow LGBTQ professionals reached out with stories of their own struggles. Grayson realized their experience had ripple effects far beyond Apex. The client project wrapped successfully despite the noise. At the wrap party, the CEO publicly praised both men, signaling full support. Grayson felt the last knots of fear loosen. That weekend they escaped to a cabin in Michigan for much-needed quiet. Walking through autumn woods, Joseph turned to him. "Remember when we thought hiding was the only option?" Grayson laughed softly. "Now I can't imagine going back." They talked for hours about future dreams. Maybe buying a house together, traveling, even starting a small mentorship program for young professionals. The conversation felt like planning a life, not just surviving one. Back in Chicago, Grayson scheduled his first therapy session. The counselor helped him unpack years of internalized pressure. "You don't have to carry everyone's expectations anymore," she said gently. The sessions became a weekly anchor. Joseph supported without pushing, attending a joint session when Grayson asked. Their communication deepened, conflicts resolving faster. Family visits grew warmer. His parents invited Joseph for Thanksgiving, the table filled with laughter instead of tension. Grayson watched his father ask Joseph about football, a small bridge forming. The holiday felt like healing. Work continued to evolve. Grayson mentored new hires with openness about authenticity. Several young employees confided in him privately. Each conversation reinforced his growth. Yet one lingering doubt remained, the fear that external forces could still upend everything. A headhunter reached out with an offer from a competitor, citing his resilience story as the draw. Grayson discussed it with Joseph over dinner. "The money's better, but this place has become home." Joseph smiled. "Whatever you choose, I'm with you." The decision weighed on him for days. Ultimately he stayed, believing his presence could continue shaping the culture. The choice brought peace. As winter approached, they decorated their first shared Christmas tree in Joseph's apartment. Now officially theirs after Grayson moved in. Hanging ornaments, Grayson realized how far they had come. From hidden kisses to building a home, Every step had been earned. The scandal that once threatened to destroy them had instead forged something unbreakable. Looking at Joseph stringing lights, Grayson felt profound gratitude. The man beside him had been his mirror, his challenge, and his greatest gift. The year ahead held promise, but more importantly, it held truth. Grayson no longer feared what the world saw. He finally saw himself clearly, and the reflection was someone worth loving openly. Winter brought its own tests. A company restructuring threatened several departments, including marketing. Grayson worked long hours to protect his team, the new director title carrying heavier responsibility than expected. Joseph supported from the trenches, their partnership a quiet strength amid uncertainty. One particularly grueling week ended with Grayson collapsing on the couch. Joseph brought soup and sat beside him. "You don't have to carry it all alone anymore." The reminder helped. They navigated the changes together, emerging with the team intact. The experience strengthened their bond further. Family dynamics continued evolving. His sister called one evening, excited to meet Joseph at Christmas. "I always knew something was different," she teased gently. "I'm proud of you." The acceptance from unexpected places healed old wounds. At work, the diversity training expanded. Grayson and Joseph volunteered to lead a panel discussion. Preparing together brought laughter and deeper conversations about their journey. The event drew record attendance. Feedback highlighted how their honesty inspired others to share. Marcus even approached afterward with an apology. "I was jealous and wrong," he admitted. Grayson accepted the olive branch, recognizing growth in others mirrored his own. Spring arrived with new opportunities. They planned a trip to California to visit Joseph's family. The warmth there contrasted sharply with Grayson's earlier experiences. Joseph's parents embraced him immediately. "You make our son happy," his mother said simply. The week felt like belonging. Back home, they discussed long-term plans seriously. Buying a house together felt like the next natural step. House hunting weekends became adventures filled with dreams. One Sunday, they found the perfect brownstone in a quiet neighborhood. Signing the papers together marked another milestone. Moving day was chaotic but joyful. Friends from work helped, the group laughing over pizza afterward. The new home symbolized everything they had fought for. Yet life tested them again when Grayson's father faced health issues. The family rallied, and Joseph flew out with him for support. Sitting in the hospital waiting room, Grayson watched Joseph comfort his mother. The sight crystallized everything. This was family now, chosen in blood. His father recovered, but the scare prompted deeper talks. "I regret the years I wasted judging," his dad admitted one evening. Grayson hugged him tightly. "We're here now." Summer brought celebration. They hosted their first backyard barbecue, inviting colleagues and family. Watching everyone mingle, Grayson felt overwhelming peace. The man who once hid in shadows now stood openly proud. Joseph caught his eye across the yard and smiled. That night, under the stars, they talked about forever. "I want to marry you someday," Grayson said quietly. Joseph's answer was a kiss full of promise. The proposal came naturally months later during a quiet hike in the woods they loved. No grand gesture, just honest words and a simple ring. Joseph said yes through happy tears. Planning the wedding became a shared joy. They chose a small ceremony by the lake where their story began. Invitations went to everyone who had walked the journey with them. As the date approached, Grayson reflected on the path. The scandal that once felt like the end had been the beginning of his truest life. He no longer questioned his worth or hid his love. The growth had been painful but necessary. The wedding day dawned bright and clear. Standing at the altar with Joseph's hand in his, Grayson spoke vows that came from the deepest part of himself. "You taught me that real strength is being seen." Joseph's response echoed the sentiment. Friends and family cheered as they kissed, this time without fear. The reception spilled with laughter and dancing. His father raised a toast to "my son and his wonderful husband." The words healed years of distance. Dancing under string lights, Grayson felt complete. The future stretched ahead full of possibility. They returned from honeymoon ready to face whatever came next, stronger together. Work continued smoothly. Grayson's leadership inspired policy changes for better inclusion. Joseph thrived in his role, eventually starting a side consultancy they supported together. Life settled into beautiful routine mixed with adventure. Yet Grayson never forgot the lesson of the scandal. Authenticity wasn't a destination but a daily choice. He mentored others with that truth. Years later, looking back, he saw clearly how one moment of exposure had reshaped everything for the better. The man he had become was someone his younger self could only dream of. And beside him always stood Joseph, the love that made every step worthwhile. Their story wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, lived openly and fully. The years following the wedding brought steady growth both personally and professionally. Grayson and Joseph settled into their brownstone, filling it with memories from travels and quiet evenings. Their careers flourished in ways neither had anticipated. Grayson implemented company-wide initiatives that made Apex a leader in inclusive workplaces. Joseph's consultancy took off, allowing flexible hours that complemented their life together. Family gatherings became regular highlights. Grayson's parents visited often, now fully embracing their son-in-law. Holidays filled the house with warmth and laughter. Joseph's family flew in for summers, turning the backyard into a celebration space. The couple also became active in local LGBTQ organizations, speaking at events about their journey. Each story shared helped others feel less alone. One particularly meaningful moment came when a young intern at Apex approached Grayson privately. "Your story gave me courage to come out," the intern said. Grayson smiled, remembering his own fears. "Live it openly. You deserve that." The conversation reinforced the impact of their visibility. Challenges still arose, of course. A market downturn tested their finances, and Joseph's mother faced health concerns that required support. Through every difficulty, they leaned on each other with the honesty forged in that original scandal. Communication had become their greatest strength. On their 5th anniversary, they returned to the Wisconsin lake where everything began. Sitting on the same dock at sunset, Grayson reflected aloud. "That CCTV moment felt like the end of my world. Turns out it was the beginning of my real life." Joseph laughed softly. "We built something beautiful from the pieces." As the sun dipped below the water, they renewed their vows quietly, just the two of them. The simple ceremony reminded them of the foundation they had laid. Back home, life continued its rewarding rhythm. They adopted a rescue dog, adding chaos and joy to their days. Work remained fulfilling, with Grayson eventually moving into a senior executive role focused on culture. Joseph expanded his business, mentoring young entrepreneurs. Their home became a gathering place for friends navigating their own journeys. Grayson often thought about the man he used to be, the one who lived in fear of discovery. That version seemed like a distant stranger now. The growth had come through pain, choices, and unwavering love. He no longer wondered if he was enough. He knew he was. One crisp autumn evening, as they sat on their porch watching the city lights, Joseph turned to him. "Any regrets about how it all started?" Grayson shook his head. "None. Every step led us here." The answer came easily because it was true. Their story had taught them that authenticity wasn't optional. It was essential. Hiding had nearly cost them everything. Living openly had given them the world. As seasons changed around them, the couple continued building a life defined by courage and connection. Friends marveled at their bond. Family celebrated their happiness. The company they once feared now valued their contributions fully. Grayson realized the scandal had been a gift in disguise. It stripped away pretense and revealed what truly mattered. Looking at Joseph across the dinner table each night, he felt profound gratitude. The love between them had survived exposure, scrutiny, and growth. It had only grown stronger. Their journey wasn't over, but every chapter ahead would be written honestly and together. The man Grayson had become stood tall, no longer afraid of being seen. And the partner beside him made every sunrise brighter. True or false? Hiding your authentic self is ever worth the cost of losing the life you could have lived openly?